Hello, and thank you for joining us. Today we have a very special guest, one who has revolutionized the writing of dark romanticism and helped in starting the new genre Gothic. You may have read or heard some of his most famous works, such as The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, a scary short story that about a man named Ichabod who got more than he bargained for when he fell for a girl. Rip Van Winkle, a short story that takes place in the Catskill and is about a Dutch villager living around the time of the Revolutionary War, and The Devil and Tom Walker, a short story about a man who feuded with his wife and made a big deal with the devil. Is it okay if I ask you a couple of questions, Mr. Irving?
Thank you for having me on your show, Mr. Roulette. I would be happy to answer as many questions as we have time for and as well as I can.
Alright, let's get started. First off, I'd like to say I'm a huge fan of your work, and my favorite story of all time happens to be Rip Van Winkle. I love how it is set in the Catskill, and I often wonder what it is like to live there. Tell me what it was like to live in the Catskill.
Well, actually, I'm kind of embarrassed about this. I never actually visited the Catskills or have even seen them. I found that the book would sell faster if I came out and said I was inspired to write the book while I was staying in the Catskills. Looking back on it, I feel a little guilty for lying, but as long as people know the truth now, it is okay with me.
You were a bit of a prankster as a young man, weren't you, Mr. Irving?
That I was indeed. I am actually pretty proud of some of the stunts I pulled as a young man. In fact, when a man named Knickerbocker went missing from a hotel in New York City, I decided to take action and use the missing person as an opportunity to make some of my work known. Little did people know that Knickerbocker wasn't an actual person, and I had actually just created the name and put him on as the author of my new book, The History of New York. People rushed to buy the book because Knickerbocker was famous at the time. My book sold out really fast.
Impressive. A History of New York is a read I deeply enjoy. Now tell me, what is your favorite book?
I've written many great books in my time, but I'd say that my favorite of all time is The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Not only was it my first major piece of work, it was a book that changed romanticism and created a new form of romanticism.
Well, that's amusing. Tell me about your childhood. I don't know anything about it at all.
Well, to start, I grew up in a family of 11 children, including myself. 3 of my siblings died, however, but it wasn't too hard on me. I grew up in Manhattan, New York, and enjoyed it there. I was never interested in school, and barely passed in grade school. My passion was always to write.
What do you find unique about your career? Who has influenced you in making this new popular genre?
Well, what I like about my career is that I have the freedom to write what I think about. I wasn't really influenced by anyone in particular. It was more the dark thoughts that I had that were my influence.
Have you had any conflicts in your life that contribute to any of your short stories?
I suppose I had a few. My siblings dying may have contributed to it, as well as the death of my first wife when she was 17.
I am terribly sorry about your losses, Mr. Irving. Now, I must say, I have heard rumors about her. They say she was your cousin.
The rumors you have heard are not wrong. She was a distant cousin, but I chose not to look at it that way. After all, if I loved her, it shouldn't matter whether or not we were related.
Now, can you tell me a little about The Devil and Tom Walker?
That is one of my favorite stories as well. It's one of my short stories. I am surprised it didn't become as popular as I thought it would.
For those who you don't know about The Devil and Tom Walker, it is a short story about a man named Tom Walker who feuded with his wife. They both were selfish and didn't care for the other in any sense when it came to money. They both tried to find treasure of Captain Kidd and ended up making a big deal with the devil. His wife died, and Tom made a deal to become a ruthless moneylender. It didn't end well for Tom in the end. Thank you, Mr. Irving. That's all the questions I have for you today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me on your show.